Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks so much for joining us. Ukraine's leaders are now calling for a meeting with Russia, and Germany's chancellor is scheduled to go to Moscow and Kiev this weekend to meet with Presidents Putin and Zelensky. The danger is clear. War could break out in Ukraine any day.
President Biden spoke to both presidents this weekend. He vowed that the United States will respond swiftly with crippling economic sanctions against Russia if it invades. George Thomas reports from Lviv, Ukraine, near the border with Poland, where Ukrainians are preparing for the worst.
2014, when Russian-backed separatists invaded eastern Ukraine, thousands of folks fled west to cities like Lviv. And today, with the threat of another Russian invasion, authorities here and across western Ukraine are bracing for 5 million refugees. We've seen the images the past few weeks. Russia adding forces and military hardware, inching ever so close to surrounding their neighbor, while Ukrainians holding almost daily drills, ready to defend their country. And yet, an image you've not likely seen. Ukrainian Christians deploying their own weapon, a shield of prayer and worship.
People are worried, but we encourage them to look to Jesus with all of our might, because it's only through prayer that we can keep peace in our country.
70% of Pastor Dimitri's congregation is from eastern Ukraine, many of them escaping ongoing violence there.
My heart right now is with my relatives I left behind in Donetsk. My mom, my sister, and my grandmother, but they cannot leave this territory, and it breaks me.
With weekend talks between President Biden and Russia's President Vladimir Putin failing to calm growing tension, the White House continues to warn of major military action.
We're in the window when a Russian invasion can start at any time if President Putin so decides. That includes in the coming days.
Foreign embassies, including the United States, moving staff here to Lviv, near the Polish border. And just as that's happening, in a small upper room near Lviv's city center, Christians from across Africa praying for their host country, ready to be hands and feet of Jesus to those who may have to flee.
As Christians and as people of God, it's our job and it's our duty to pray for the whole world, because the Lord wants peace.
On the other side of town, area pastors met Sunday night for a time of planning and prayer, many telling CBN News what's at stake for their country.
This is ultimately a fight for freedom.
Valery Marchenko's brother pastors a church in an eastern area occupied by Russian separatists.
They are forbidden from having church meetings together, but they still do it secretly. And I think this is what will happen if Russia invades. But the truth is that it is impossible to stop the Church of Jesus Christ.
And it's that church here in Lviv that's continuing to preach hope and peace in the midst of uncertainty. George Thomas, CBN News, Lviv, Ukraine.
Well, George Thomas is now with us from Ukraine. So, George, the Ukrainians are asking for a meeting with the Russians. What do you expect the talk to be? Are they going to ask, are your troops just passing by?
Yeah, absolutely, Gordon. As you know, both Ukraine and Russia are members of the Organization for Security and Cooperation, the OSCE. About 57 countries, Gordon, make up this organization. And in fact, part of the organization's platform is that if one country feels that the other country is posing a military threat in any shape or form, that country has every right to present and ask the other country to say, hey, what's up? Why are you doing this? And exactly that's Ukraine's foreign minister says he wants to have a meeting with his counterpart in Russia to say, hey, what's up with these 130,000 troops that are massing around our border? What are your intentions? What do you plan to do?
Well, the list of countries urging citizens to evacuate immediately, it's growing by the day. How real is the threat of invasion?
just like the White House said, from the White House National Security to our State Department Representative Antony Blinken, to Prime Minister Johnson, who said, look, we are at a tipping point. All indications are that Russia is ready. They've got all the equipment, all the forces ready to pounce on Ukraine. And as Secretary Blinken said in my piece, it could be a matter of days.
Well, you've been on the ground several days in Ukraine, so how are people handling this? What's the atmosphere like?
Gordon, it really is a stark contrast. I arrived, as you mentioned, a couple of days ago in Kyiv, the capital city, and it was a sense of fear, trepidation, people going to the stores, getting their supplies, food, and so forth. But, the reality, the malls were packed, the streets were busy, the cafes, the restaurants were busy. And as I talked to people, not just in Kyiv, but in Kharkiv, in Donbass, in Mariupol, and here in Lviv, they say to me, George, we've been dealing with war for the last 8 years. You journalists just appeared on the scene in the last 2-3 weeks. The reality is that we have lived under the threat, under war for the last 8 years in the East. But clearly, there is a sense, Gordon, just since President Biden announced last week that the U.S. Personnel need to get out of the country, there's been a shift in the mood in the country here. And people are beginning to say, wow, what really are Russia's intentions? And what is the reason for them to even think about invading our beloved country?
Well, George, thanks for the eyewitness account, and please stay safe. Well, in other news, products are once again moving by truck across the Ambassador Bridge from Canada to Detroit, but the protest isn't over. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That's right, Gordon. The free flow of goods comes as a result of police clearing the blockade on the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. After days of protests that brought the crossing to a standstill and disruptions at some U.S. auto plants, police moved in, arresting some protesters and towing trucks. It's part of a nationwide trucker protest against COVID restrictions in Canada. Some provinces are scaling back or dropping requirements. Meanwhile, another blockade is forming in Buffalo at the Peace Bridge into Canada. And there are reports trucker protests could spread here to the United States. Last week, the Department of Homeland Security issued a bulletin warning of a potential convoy from California to Washington, D.C. between mid-February and mid-March. Well, the Los Angeles Rams are Super Bowl champions after a thrilling come-from-behind victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford threw the winning touchdown pass to wide receiver Cooper Kupp, who was the game's most valuable player. After the game, Kupp, who's known for his strong Christian faith, said God had given him a vision after a previous Super Bowl loss.
In 2019, we walked off the field that last time after losing to the Patriots. I wasn't able to be a part of that thing. But I don't know what it was. There's just this vision that God revealed to me that we were going to come back. We were going to be a part of a Super Bowl. We were going to win it. And somehow I was going to walk off the field as the MVP of the game.
What an incredible vision. Gordon?
Catches, the most receiving yards, the most touchdowns during the season. Only 4 players have earned the NFL's coveted Triple Crown. Well, now Los Angeles Rams superstar Cooper Kupp has added MVP of the Super Bowl to his accolades. Sports reporter Tom Buring sat down with Cooper long before the big game to find out what makes him a #1 playmaker.
A game can provide a remarkable emerging journey, even at a distance. It has for Cooper Kupp. The Rams' playmaking receiver is shaped by bloodlines from Yakima, Washington's first family of football, 3 NFL generations worth, while setting multiple college career records from Eastern Washington, before making an immediate NFL impact in Los Angeles.
So, Coop, your offensive awareness has almost made you a quarterback whisperer, chemistry with your quarterback. What's most important to you about earning trust?
Huge. Us to ask the quarterback to sit back there in the pocket, knowing that there's guys bearing down on him. Him just being able to trust that we're going to be at the right spot at the right time, I think is everything in terms of that relationship. And if we're not doing that, that's when things got to go off schedule. Now you're asking your quarterback to have to make a play because we're off as receivers.
Football's a game about game speed. How do you prepare yourself to what that requires?
Yeah, well, I think it's just practice. Our approach to practice, I think, is paramount. We always say that practice preparation equals game reality. Exactly what we want it to be in terms of our tempo and our focus going into that, and just being able to execute. When we get to the game, we step on the field on Sunday, we've already performed this over and over again during practice. So much about football is preparation. When you go out there on Sunday with a quieted mind, be able to just play the game that you've prepared all week for.
Does the tempo and rhythm of football heighten your awareness just translating into life? I mean, you're a dad now, you've got no choice probably by that, right?
It's interesting because I feel like, sometimes you come into work and you gotta be laser focused all the way through, and that in another way, it's nice to be able to go home and feel like, oh, well, I don't have to be like that right now. But yeah, we do have a 1-year-old now, so I get the 24/7 training experience.
Looking back now, storied, record-setting career at Eastern Washington, how did that prepare you for the NFL?
Going to Eastern, I had coaches that came around me that never let me become complacent with anything. Yes, this is good, but this is how you can be better. He's just calling me to something greater than I'm seeing for myself. Look at how much better you can be if you can fix these things and get in there and say, well, this was good, how can I be better?
Your family, the Cups are now just the 5th to have 3 generations drafted in the NFL playing the game. Your dad as a former quarterback, your granddad as a former lineman. What kind of support did that give you?
Oh, I mean, it's been incredible to have such experience to lean on and just perspective. I think how much they love their family, how much they took care of things, how they treated people. I'm now being able to live out my dream, but I have such bigger things happening in my life that are beyond football. As much as I absolutely love football and know like I'm going to put everything I have into it, that I've got a family at home, and my faith in Christ as well, that just is more important to make sure that's healthy. That's something that my dad and grandpa showed me.
The ACL tear. What did you learn about yourself you never would have seen by the waiting, the wondering, and the rehabbing?
That's a good question. There's a lot of lessons I think I learned through this, but I think if I pinpoint it down, it's that I can't do this by myself. The first thing that comes to mind is just the spiritual battle that goes on when something like this happens. Just reactively is why. What caused this to happen? I needed God. I needed to trust in what my faith was. Just having my wife and son to be able to push me. The teammates, the coaching staff, the training staff, strength staff. I mean, I just had a team around me that encouraged me, really showed me how important it was to have people around me that God's really placed in my life, seeing how much of a blessing that is.
Faith is a huge part of that. Our faith is that, that we're not number one. We're not the number one focus of our lives, and it's others, and it's Christ first, and then it's others, starting with the closest people to you.
I know he knows there's purpose in everything, and he'll look back and know that he's grown from it, and he's a stronger person, and hopefully he can help someone else down the road that goes through the same thing.
All right, hey, it's a great Rams win today. Great day for the Rams, great day for Coop.
You are referred to as a playmaker, altering a game, impacting a game. Off the field, you ever consider Jesus Christ being a playmaker in lives?
He might just be the greatest playmaker that's ever lived. Restoration, redemption, sacrifice, what he laid on the line to change the world forever. You can't find a better playmaker than Jesus Christ.
Coop, who is he to you?
I don't think there's words to really, at the very basic levels of my life, as a husband, as a father, football player, knowing how much of a failure I am at these things. If it wasn't for my faith, if it wasn't for knowing that Christ has told me who I am in his eyes, and know that no matter how far short I fall on all these things, that he's bridged every gap and that he's called me to even greater things.
And he's called you to even greater things, that the price he paid for you, who you are in his eyes, is the most important thing in life. When you realize that you're worth the sacrifice that Jesus paid for you, that his sacrifice gives you value, what he was looking at from the cross. The scriptures say that when he offers his soul as a sacrifice for sin, he shall see his descendants, and his soul will be satisfied. Isn't that amazing? that Jesus saw you from the cross, and the decisions, the life that you would lead for him would satisfy him. It's the greatest story the world has ever heard. Here is Cooper Kupp. He's now MVP of the Super Bowl. He's at the height of his profession, the height of a lot of what people dream about. But he says, without him, I'm a failure. I can't be a husband. I can't be a father. I can't be a football player. He enabled me to come back from an ACL tear. He enabled me to have a community surrounding me. For you right now, whatever you're going through, just bow your head and ask that very simple prayer. It's the same thing that Cooper Kupp did, same thing I did. Jesus, without you, I can't do this. But with you, I can do all things. If you're discouraged, if you're wondering about the future, if you have trouble in your heart, turn to him. He is the answer to every human need. And when you come to that realization, you see it, just as Cooper saw it, that without him you can do nothing, but with him you can do all things. That his sacrifice gives you meaning, it gives you purpose, it gives you value. You're worth it. When you come to that, you come to the greatest revelation anyone can ever have. And you can stand on this earth and see it. You can have this. You can have a relationship with your Creator. How do you get it? It's real simple. You bow your head. You acknowledge him. You say it out loud, Jesus, could you come into my heart? I see what you've done for Cooper. I've seen what you've done for other people. Could you do that for me? Could you transform me? Could you come into my heart, my life? If you pray that with all of your heart, the Bible's very clear. When you seek me with all of your heart, then you'll find me. If you want help with this prayer, we're here for you. All you have to do is pick up the phone and call us. 1-800-700-7000. Just tell the person on the other end of the line, I need Jesus. I need to have him in my life, and I need it today. We've also got a free packet for you called A New Day. In it is a teaching of what do Christians believe? How do you live the Christian life? How do you know if your sins are forgiven? All explained to you. It's absolutely free, no financial obligation at all. All you have to do is call 1-800-700-7000.